Season 5 of the Mean Streets podcast, episode 1 of season 5. Hello, everybody. I'm William Galloway. This guy to my right or left, I don't even know, is Britton Johnson. We've been doing this podcast together for 5 years. Britton played at Alabama for Avery Johnson, and then he was there for the transition to Nate Oates and went on to play at Samford for Bucky McMillan, who, of course, is now at Texas A&M. But each couple of weeks throughout the season, we talk college basketball and mainly Alabama. So thank you for joining us, BJ. Good to see you. Welcome back, college basketball.
Yeah, welcome back. I mean, this is kind of the great time of the year where you combine all of the sports. You get about a month period, maybe 2 months, where college football, college basketball kind of collide, and so it's kind of sports paradise time here.
It really is. And I think the best time of the year, obviously October is a great month. The World Series just finished up a tremendous game 7. But like you said, this kind of turnover, this and then kind of February, March when you really get into the heat of college basketball postseason. But Britain, Alabama this year trying to build upon Final Four run 2 years ago, an Elite Eight run last year, and a lot of roster turnover. That's to be expected in today's day and age. And so we get to learn a lot about Alabama as we record this. It's November 3rd. So we're just a couple hours away. People may be listening on their ride down to Tuscaloosa or on their ride home or later in the week. Whatever it is, we appreciate everybody checking out the Mean Streets podcast. But what are your expectations and what are your hopes? Maybe we'll start with hopes before expectations for this Alabama team this year under Nate Oates in his 7th year, by the way.
Yeah, that makes me feel really old to hear that he's been there 7 years. I think the expectations are going to be that we're going to be playing our best ball come SEC play, but maybe not in November. We're pretty young right now. We're really used to having a super veteran team, the past couple of years. And this year, I mean, our first exhibition game, I believe, Amari Allen and Davion Hannah were both in the closing lineup. Those are two freshmen. And so this is going to be a young team. They're going to be, I still think very talented and very good. I think this roster fits Oates' scheme as well as any he has had. But from a veteran and, maybe overall talent standpoint, it might be a little bit less than what it's been, at least last year. So all this to say, I think November will be a month where we kind of are figuring out what we are and what our identity is. No NATO's team has ever been, I think, their fullest potential in November. They've never won a Thanksgiving tournament. They've never won anything like that. And there are no championships or rings being handed out in November. So I don't think that's a problem. But, there will be some games where we have 18 turnovers, especially in November. But the key for me is how are we going to be defensively? And this team will go as the defense goes. I think we'll be able to score a lot of points, make a lot of threes. But, with our backcourt size, is that going to limit us defensively? I think that's going to be a huge question. How is Taylor Bobo and then so guys like that, how are they going to fit into the picture? So I know I just said a lot, but I think that's kind of the key early is what are we going to be defensively and finding the rotations that kind of work.
Well, I agree that it starts with the defense, and you talk about the 18 turnovers as an example, and 18 is really not great, but it is actually okay if the other team has 24 turnovers, right? If you're playing at that pace of play that you know that Alabama's going to be playing at, scoring 90, 95, 100 points a game, then you're going to have some turnovers here and there. If you have 18, obviously you've got to be pitching 20, 24 turnovers for the other team. So I think that's important. Britton, I've got a question for you here as we look at our schedule. Nate Oates in 6 years has 145 wins. We've got 7 games in November, starting on the 3rd, finishing up on a to be determined opponent on the 26th. But with the gauntlet that we have, I mean, you talk about going to Madison Square Garden, the players era, once again, being reinvited to that, playing Illinois, Gonzaga, I mean, you name it. Can Nate Oates get to 150 wins as his time at Alabama continues before December? So that would be winning 5 out of 7 games in this November gauntlet. And for anyone who doesn't have the schedule in front of them, it's North Dakota tonight at St. John's versus Purdue versus Illinois, Gonzaga, UNLV, and then I said as a to be determined opponent a couple days before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I mean, the fun thing about me saying that we're never a complete team in November is, NATO's just is known for scheduling really lightly in the non-conference and never taking on big challengers or anything like that. No, I mean, we have an absolute gauntlet again this year. And I feel like every year it's kind of like the schedule couldn't get any tougher. And then it's almost like Nate takes it as a challenge. Like, you want to see how hard I can make this schedule. So we're in for a really great time, I think, in November. Some great basketball games and great opportunities for our guys to learn a lot on the job. And so I think he'll be able to get 5 of those 7. I mean, you look at where the games are being played, and I think that's a big piece of it too. Outside of the Vegas ones, and I guess the one at Illinois, I think a lot of these games are at home, or St. John's obviously being an outlier as well. I mean, I think the fact that we have Purdue at home, the fact that we have kind of a bunch of these neutral site games, I think that is huge. Um, I'm really excited for Saturday. I think, I've already heard a lot of people kind of mention it as a day that could be reminiscent of the day in 2021 when our team went up to uh, Washington State. We went to Seattle and beat Gonzaga, and obviously Alabama football beat Georgia in the SEC championship game that day. And so the potential for an absolute gump, just celebration day in which we could beat St. John's in Madison Square Garden and then go on to beat LSU in football would be phenomenal. So I'm really, really excited for that. Excited for tonight. I just told William I'm going to be heading up very soon. And so going to be a couple of really fun weeks of ball.
Hey, I want to ask you about guard play. And when coaches talk about being successful in the long run of the season in the NCAA tournament and then making a run, in March, it takes 6 games in that tournament to win a national championship. They say you got to get old and you got to have really good guard play and then you got to have sound defense. So you touched on defense earlier, but let's go to the guard play. LeBaron Philon, preseason, I think he's an All-American. If not, he should be. I don't have all those preseason accolades. And after the college football preseason media expectations, I just don't pay much attention to those things anymore. And then Aiden Holloway, of course, the guy who transferred from Auburn 2 years ago, had an exceptional season, shot with all the confidence in the world under Nate Oates. And of course, we know what that slight is all about. But Britton, how important is guard play, especially early on in the year, to set the tone for this Alabama team? And what do you expect to see from Philon and Holloway specifically?
Yeah, I mean, I think the exhibition showcased that from a scoring standpoint, I think that Oates has put the challenge on those guards to lead the way. Again, I think the challenge for them, they're not huge guys, is what kind of fight can they put up defensively? I think that would have been, the biggest problem that Aiden had this past year is his defense is very up and down. He was a great shooter for us. He was perfect in the role in which we had him. But if he's going to be one of the lead guards on a good to great basketball team here this year, the challenge for him is going to be to step up as a creator and to step up as a defensive player. And so, I mean, you're right. I think to make a deep run in the tournament, you kind of go as far as your guards take you to an extent. Certain other elements, obviously, your defense and rebounding, that's what travels. But these 1-2 possession games, which is what you get Sweet 16 on, that's what those games are decided by, unless Alabama hits 23 threes or whatever they hit against BYU again. Um, it is decided by your guard play and your toughness on the stretch of these games. And so figuring out who are going to be the guys. I mean, we didn't even mention Latrell Wrightsell, who's back. And so
Yeah.
I think he could be an absolute stud for us as well. I'm very confident from an offensive standpoint in who our guards are and how talented they are and how many points they can score. But can they create for others? And can they guard? And if they can do those two things at even a good level, they don't have to be elite at it because they're elite scorers. If they can do those things at a plus level, they will be all conference level guards. So
Yeah, and I think Nate talks about creating for others, right? You can have all the ability in the world, you can score in transition, you can play good guard play, but offensively, it really starts not with what your shooting percentage is, but how do you create for others playing team basketball? And that is the example and the epitome of really, a tremendous guard, especially in the best league in the country in the SEC. Britton, any more parting thoughts or things you want to get off your chest? Maybe bold predictions or expectations. We talked about hopes. Maybe we move to expectations now for this Alabama team before we jump around the SEC, look at Auburn, Texas A&M, and a couple other programs.
yeah, I mean, I think the thing that excited me most in watching those 2 exhibition games, there's some things we need to work on that were just really apparent. But the 2 things that really excited me were the just the role that the freshmen played. It was really clear that those guys are going to be key on our team. There's the preseason quote by Oates about Davion Hanna being the best defender that he has had since Herb, which having been guarded by Herb on every scout team for about 3 years or 2 years or whatever, I can take that as that's high praise. And so
You were
uh,
1B or 1C, maybe.
yeah, so some of my college years either getting guarded by Keon Ellis, who's now an NBA defender. Yeah, he's a 3-and-D guy, or it's Herb Jones, who's now all NBA defender. So it's like I didn't get to score a ton
And they
at
got to
points.
go up against a future lawyer. So it
Yeah,
worked out.
and so I'd like to think that I really made them into the players they are today, and in some ways. But no, going back, I think Davion Hanna just really really impressed me. His athleticism, ability to finish around the rim, his defense. He's just going to be a guy that makes a huge difference for this team, and he's a guy that will be in the closing lineup in a lot of these games. And I think the same can be said for Mari Allen. He made a couple of. We were talking earlier about the ability to create, and so he's a wing, but his ability to create for his teammates really impressed me. I mean, he had a couple of offhanded passes, which doesn't seem like much if you're just kind of watching it uh, without like a lot of intent, but the ability to have as a righty a left-handed, one-handed pass cross court that hits the guy right in the shooting pocket is pretty impressive for an 18 or 19-year-old. So um, I think those guys that are going to be really important for this team because you look at what we have. I think everyone felt pretty confident about our guard play. Everyone felt pretty confident about what we'd have in our big spot. Having Aiden Terrell back really provided a lot of confidence. But then it was like, what are we going to have in the 3 and 4? What are the wings going to look like? And I think those two guys, London Jemison as well, will kind of provide big pieces to that answer. And so I'm really excited to see them this year and see how they develop throughout the year. As far as expectations, um, the SEC is going to be awesome again. I think that's just really clear. It'll be maybe not to the level it was last year, but I don't think college basketball is going to be the level it was this past year at the top end. There are just so many COVID guys that were 24, 25. Some of those guys even are still playing at USC and places like that. But for the most part, these older guys are out, and so because of that, I think college basketball as a product might be a little bit worse. But that provides more room for a young team like Alabama to be at the top of the SEC where they might not have been last year. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable to expect us to be a top four-ish seed in the SEC and a top four-ish seed in the national landscape. And so I think that is expectations. But I mean, this as well as anyone. Like these things are built over months. This is not something where if we lose 2 games out of our first 4, that I'm all of a sudden going to say, oh man, got to reset expectations. Or if we are a 6 seed instead of a 4 seed at the end of the year, it's not the season's a failure. You just kind of have
Right.
to read it as it goes and see what kind of potential this team can reach.
Yeah, I think that's your annual reminder, and I think it's good that people scroll back 30 seconds, 15 seconds, and listen to that again because we didn't make the Final Four in November. We made it in March a couple years ago. We didn't make back-to-back Elite Eight runs by playing exceptional basketball before Christmas. That's not how it works, but that compounds over time. And you talk about the SEC and looking around the league. Let's look at some of those teams now. Alabama coming in AP preseason top 25. You got 6 teams in the SEC. You've got, as I read this, Florida 3, Kentucky 9, Arkansas 14, Bama 15, Tennessee 18, and Auburn 20. Again, like I said, for football, Arch Manning, I think, was second or third team quarterback, and he's probably the 14th best quarterback in the SEC right now. He could trend
I don't
upwards,
know. He balled
whatever.
out last week.
That doesn't, I was gonna
He might
say
be
now
back.
that may be adjusted over time, but when you look at all of these teams and these programs, Florida, defending national champion. Kentucky spent more money than you could gamble on a horse race on their roster this year. Arkansas probably going to figure it out in year 2 under Calipari. Alabama, 5 returners, maybe one of the best guards rooms in, all of college basketball, certainly up there in the league. Tennessee under Rick Barnes, certainly excited to get back to the NCAA tournament and probably have a first weekend exit because they always do. And then Auburn 20 coming off a Final Four run. What in the world are you going to make of Auburn under a coach who's never called a timeout before in a regular season game? He's kind of like, I kind of equate it to DeBoer, where year one, you're handed a Ferrari, figure it out, make adjustments, run the program as you need to, and then the telltale sign of what is going to be happening in years to come is what happens in year two. So I think he's got probably a longer leash than a lot of these coaches around the league.
Yeah, I mean, with Stephen Pearl, I think a lot of it is this first year is like you were saying, you're handed the roster, and so um, it's funny. Like I feel like when the system is so much in place, which I really think for Auburn it is because they were able to retain basically the whole staff. Um, I don't think Bruce not being there is going to have a massive impact this season. I really don't. But I think we'll see years like you said, 2, 3, 4. What kind of coach Stephen Pearl is going to be? You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of when it'll come out. Uh,
Well, and also, we're not going to know. We can't record another podcast tomorrow and say, well, Alabama beat, so and so team. Auburn beat Bethune Cookman, right? Texas
yeah.
A&M beat Directional State. Like
Hey,
it doesn't.
respect North Dakota.
I
Don't
know
call them
I'm
so and so team.
with
They
respect
gave
to
us all
North
we could
Dakota, who
handle
almost
at
got us.
North.
I'm just saying you run up and down the league,
Right.
and you can't turn around. Just like you're saying, you don't make it in March and November. You don't look at these. We can't look at whatever happens in this game tonight and say, well, Alabama's going to be this, right? Or Bruce Pearl's going to take Auburn to the Final Four, or he's not going to make the tournament. Those assumptions aren't fair.
Right. No, totally. I mean, and that's the great thing about having a really strong conference too. Is like even a team that doesn't have a great non-con can come into the conference play, and if they go on a run, you might think you know what they're going to be, but then they could have a great conference play, and all of a sudden they're a tournament team. And so that opportunity wasn't really afforded to SEC teams 6 or 7 years ago. It was kind of if you had a subpar, yeah, if you had a subpar non-con, then there are only 4 teams or whatever that were going to make the tournament in the day. So you're kind of SOL unless you make just an awesome run.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on Auburn specifically? And then I want to harp on A&M real fast because I think we got some new followers from College Station.
Yeah, I don't really have a ton else for Auburn. I mean, I think Tahad is an awesome player. I think they're going to have some good pieces. Certainly, I don't think they're as talented or as veteran as they were last year, and I don't think that's a shot at them. I think that's a reality for most of the teams in the league, and so um, they're a team that I expect to be able to score a lot of points. I know they scored 100 points on Memphis in an exhibition, but what kind of team will they be defensively is going to be kind of the determining factor for how far they go.
Yeah, they took on Oklahoma State and Texas in an exhibition. Texas A&M will play Oklahoma State in 6 days' time next weekend. And so, want to say a quick thank you to everybody who has checked us out or follows us or listens or watches because this is something that Britton and I just enjoy doing. And we have some new followers from College Station with Bucky McMillan and the connections there. We had a video do really well, and in the grand scheme of things for what our numbers are. But appreciate everybody checking that out to learn more about Buckyball, and that is going to be rolled out tonight in College Station and Reed Arena for the first time. So obviously, you and I are excited to see him have success there, and I think we have all come to expect, and we said this, 6 months ago when he was hired, it wasn't a matter of if, but when. You've heard all the press conferences, you've seen SEC media days. I did an interview with Bucky just a couple weeks ago here in Mountain Brook. But Britton, your expectations for year one under Coach McMillan, because Bucky Ball is coming, and whether the SEC knows it or not, not the ideal year one non-conference slate, but all things considered, they have the best roster they could have given the time he was hired and what they were able to do in those first 6 to 10 weeks as he took over.
Yeah, and it's hard to really set hard and fast expectations for what they're going to be this year because when Bucky took the job, there was one player on the roster. And so the ability to even fill out a competent roster, which I think he's done more than just that, is pretty phenomenal. I expect them to have a really successful non-con. I don't think that they're not exactly they don't have Alabama's non-conference schedule.
Right.
It doesn't say that they don't have challenges along the way as well. But I'll never forget this, William, and I know you'll remember this too. When he took the job at Stanford, he played like an exhibition against some lower division team, some directional school from even from Stanford.
I think they were from Chicago, maybe.
Yeah, I can't remember,
Yeah.
but I think he scored about 180 points. Um, and I think coming into this year, trying to set the expectations for what A&M fans can expect. I think one thing that Bucky understands about the game of basketball as a coach is, yes, he is probably the most Saban-like coach I've been around in terms of his process-oriented approach to winning. Um, but even more so, maybe not more so, but to the same extent, he understands that basketball is an entertainment venue. It is a medium by which people can be entertained. And so I think that he's going to use these first couple of games to really push and see how many points he can score to really excite the fan base and get them behind him.
He did
Uh,
exactly that in his press conference when he said, "Oh, if we shoot the way we shot in practice the other day, we're going to win the Natty." And then all of a
yeah,
sudden, all of SEC Twitter was like, "Who does this guy think he is?"
yeah,
Well, it was like, yeah, you probably did shoot 55% in practice one day. And yeah, if you run on a string of 6 games in a row shooting 55% from three, you will win the national championship. But it's that
yeah,
preseason hype where you're like, you gotta you gotta get eyeballs, right?
yeah. I fully expect him to hit triple digits tonight, and I
For
think
sure.
that'll really excite the fan base. I think it'll be a really fun season to be a Texas A&M fan. I don't
I'd be
truthfully, I don't
disappointed
know
if
what the
you
win
don't score
loss.
100 on the Northwestern State Demons.
Yeah, hey, respect Northwestern State. Come on, man. Um, no,
It's
but
not about
honestly,
them, it's
it's
about us.
exactly. Um, from like an SEC win loss perspective, I have no idea what that looks like. I don't even know really. No one knows what the league looks like yet. And last year we thought the SEC would be pretty good, and it came out and it was a monster. This year, I think everyone's expecting it to be a monster again. It may be, but it also may be just pretty good. And so no one really knows. No one knows what A&M looks like. They're kind of an unknown commodity right now from a roster standpoint. Two of their best players have kind of been hurt, so getting them back is going to be a huge piece as well. Um, but really and truly, I think that they're going to have a fun season, and I think they're going to surprise some people.
Yeah.
That's a promise. They're going to have a couple of games where they're not expected to win, and they're going to go in and blitz a team, and I think that'll be kind of the mark that Bucky leaves on this season. So
Well
I'm
said.
excited for him, excited for that team, and all the guys that we know on that staff, and so
Yeah.
um,
Good friends, good people. Hey,
yeah.
last question here. Were you up for sicko hours at 7 a.m. Central to watch the Field of 68 tip off on YouTube this morning?
Unfortunately, while I was on X to see some of the updates and hear the fake Woj bomb being dropped,
So that
um,
was fake. I had been working. I don't know.
I think it was fake. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't think Woj was actually tossed out of the game. Um, I wasn't fully keeping up with that one, but God, I mean, college hoops is back.
I was
Great
tuned
day.
in to witness tip off at 7 a.m., and that was glorious.
I mean, I saw the Fanta video today. Did you see that?
No, but I'll watch it on my way home.
I
I'm
mean, it
headed out
gets you
here.
ready. Just
John
directly in
Fanta
my
John
veins.
Fanta always delivers. He's like the pizza man.
He's the
Always
man.
on time, always delivers. Hey,
Uh,
thank y'all so much for checking us out, whether you're listening on Apple or Spotify or watching on YouTube. Britton and I are going to have a podcast probably every 2 or 3 weeks throughout the college basketball season. You can check us out. Look up Mean Streets Podcast, former episodes, whether you listen or watch, and we will have content on there. This is a stem of the Galloway Communications Hub. So thank you for checking us out. Really appreciate you taking time to listen to two guys just jab back and forth and talk hoops. We really enjoy it, and we appreciate everyone who supports us. Britton, you've got the last word. Send us home, and let's get ready to tip off this 25-26 college basketball season.
Once again, said it earlier, but just a chance to have an all time Alabama Saturday. This Saturday, I will be eyes glued to that game in Madison Square Garden, and then I'll be in Tuscaloosa for the game. So roll tide. Let's see if we can have what would that be, a 3-0 week, including 2 basketball games and a football game.
It'd be
And
sweet.
let's have a fun week. Yeah, roll tide.